Howdy y'all. How many of y'all know what this is? How many of you ever seen something that looks like that besides in a Walmart catfish aisle, huh? Well, it's something that's a viable deal for me as far as catching bass, and something I think you guys could use, and an idea that you guys can use. So if you want to know what this thing is, what I'm talking about, stay tuned. This is Hickbilly Outdoors with D.W. Verts. We'll come right back at you. So guys, it's a pistol grip bait cast rod. It's all we had basically when I first started fishing. There was very few straight handled rods. Most of them are pistol grips. A lot of things have changed, and a lot of things have changed for the better. I'll tell you that rod technology and reel technology today is way better than it ever was in the day. But some things shouldn't be left alone. What this is, a 5.5 foot medium heavy rod. It's a Falcon from back when I was sponsoring today. It's kind of old school technology, but I used this rod and reel just this spring. What I used it for was with spinnerbait. It was May. Bass were on the banks or close to it, tight to cover, a lot of flooded bushes and laydowns, things like that. And I'm in here making these real short little casts, almost pitches, with that spinnerbait. And I'm doing multitudes of casts per minute, per hour, compared to somebody with a longer rod throwing further. Without this turning to a rant, making myself unpopular with you young guys, why are you throwing so far? Now this one technique is just one thing. It's a little bit short cast to cover with precise casts. I don't get why everybody talks about how far they throw. What are you trying to get at? I mean, I fished a lot of different things over the years, a lot of different kinds of covers, a lot of different kinds of bass, a lot of different kinds of baits and presentations. I'm going to say unequivocally that most people are throwing too far at any given time. Are you trying to cover more water? You think that's it? Because I see casts made, I'm making 3 presentations the time it takes 1, and maybe even 4. Holy cow. Here's what my feelings are. Just because you can don't mean you should. Okay? Several things happen on a long cast. First off, you lose accuracy. I don't care how good you are. And I've made some bombers that landed where they're supposed to. Just like shooting an arrow too far and hitting a bullseye. You feel all proud of yourself. Really? Is a 100-foot, for me a long cast is 50 foot, but is a 100-foot cast that necessary when you're losing accuracy, not putting a bait where you want the first time? Maybe throwing it in a tree or whatever. Secondly, whether you're a tournament fisherman or an everyday guy in the water, a normal guy in other words, or a pond fisherman. Let's say you're not catching any bass yet, or you've just started the day, you're trying to figure things out. Everything's part of a puzzle, okay? It's the way my puny brain works at it. And this is my puny brain's observations, my opinions. They're just mine, okay? You make that long cast. And let's say you chuck this spinnerbait 75 feet out there. I don't know how far I can throw one. Just a half ounce. I'll probably throw a long ways with a 7-foot rod. You make that toss, commence your retrieve, and let's say, just for instance, a 6-pound bass does one of these things, but doesn't get the bait. Just makes that move at it. Just makes the pass. What good did that do you 75 or 60 or even 50 foot away? You didn't see that, your brain didn't record that. Well, you say, well, he didn't get it. What's it matter? It matters a world when you're trying to figure a bass out and what's going on any given day that fish made a move at that bait. I like to be, and you're not going to see everything that happens. I'm just saying, this is an example. I like to see that fish. That fish tells me some things. First off, he tells me he's interested. He darn sure gave away his location, which is critical, it may tell me something about how I presented the bait, if I did it wrong, or let me follow up. So if that happens 25 foot away where I'll see that fish, I can rethink. I'll probably chunk that spinnerbait back in there maybe. I'll throw a jig or whatever in there. It gives me an idea. For one thing, I'm going to work that fish. He may come off a piece of cover in a way that tells me how other bass are on the same kind of cover. That make any sense? Excuse me, that's one thing. You make how far long cast you make? 100 foot cast, for instance, which isn't that far. I can throw 100 foot with this rod here. I'm sure I can. Now you're going to make me measuring, aren't you? You make that 100 foot cast and a bass bites. And you hook up with that bass. Well, I'm telling you, one thing that I do make long casts with sometimes is a crankbait. On a 7 foot rod, I launch it sometimes, especially a deep running crankbait for obvious reasons. Nothing scarier than a 5-pound bass jumping at the end of the line 75 foot away. You have so little control over those fish that far out. Doing it with that crankbait is an obvious, the demon you have to live with, because a deep diving crankbait, in many situations, you have to throw it as far as you can just to get that 15 foot or 20 foot of optimum running depth. You have to get that, and I can accept that. And acceptable losses will be once in a while a bass is going to get away from you. Sometimes too often. So what are you gaining on a long cast if you can't control that bass, especially in heavy cover? Again, I make once in a while, and I'm always conscious when I do it, especially like a frog. I throw a frog sometimes too far. And I'm throwing on the meatiest, nastiest tackle. I can throw it on with heavy braid and heavy rods, and man, it's ugly. I know someday I'll probably film some of those hook sets. And you winch, you crank, and they get off. Of course, a topwater fish, especially a frogfish, you got percentages. It's that high profit thing. Once in a while, you're just going to lose one. But why are you guys throwing so far? What's made it so necessary that you throw hundreds of feet, whatever you can throw? Another given thing is clear water. I get it. I get the need to throw more than 30 or 40 feet once in a while, and I do. If the fish aren't very deep. Fish are deep, I'm fishing over the top of them anyway, as much as possible, because vertical fishing is still the best way to stay in contact with the bait, stay in contact with the fish, control the fish, get the fish to the boat, which is what we're all out there trying to do. Put the daggum fish in the boat. Right? Are you one of those guys that talks about how many strikes he had in a day, not how many fish he landed? Because that's always fun to listen to for about 35 seconds. Oh, you should see what I could have had. Whatever. Why are you guys throwing so far? What is a new thing, I think. Maybe because I'm new to fishing again after all the years I took off from it. So, we're losing accuracy, losing idea of being able to see a fish, maybe learn something from that bass, and we're losing control of that bass once he bites. I'm not seeing very many things in favor of. The deep diving crankbait, I've thrown them things so far, I think, is another lake. And it's scary. It also makes them, you got to work them through things, and it's harder to feel. There's a lag time. There's always things that come into play, an acceptable risk. Now, is every day you fish an acceptable risk? Is that okay for you? Fine. I'm going to keep my cast in any given situation as short as possible. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible and make it easy on myself and put as many bass in the boat as possible. And that's my feelings. I'll be doing some videos where I'm going to show my short cast techniques with this spinnerbait and the way I approach things. It's a Jimmy Houston deal. You look up Jimmy Houston videos, you will see the technique that I've used since the 70s. And when that kind of bites on, I'm mashing them. And I'm making more presentations, more accurate, and I'm putting more bass in the boat. Because I'm not blowing it, because I can't feel them, see them, hear them, smell them, taste them, whatever it takes. So, that's not really meant to be a rant. That is a real tip. I hope you guys can use it. Go to ultimatebass.com discussion forums. Go to ultimatebass.com, look at some of the articles, the blog articles like I write. There's some cool stuff there. And there's some guys on ultimatebass.com that won't like what I'm saying here, and that's fine, because we're still in God Bless America, and we all get along anyway. Go to Randy Blockett's channel on YouTube. You'll like it also. Intuitive Angling with Randy Blockett. It's good stuff. Guys, thank y'all. Appreciate you watching. If you like it, tell somebody else about it. If you don't, tell me about it. God bless.